Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're beginning a new chapter today. Chapter 17. Victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions of the universe. First verse. Maitreya Uvacha Nishamyatma Bhuvagitam Nishamyatma Bhuvagitam Karanam Shankayojhitaha Karanam Shankayojhitaha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Maitreya said, The demigods, the inhabitants of the higher planets, were freed from all fear upon hearing the cause of the darkness explained by Brahma, who was born from Vishnu. Thus, they all returned to their respective planets. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The demigods, who are denizens of the higher planets, are also very much afraid of incidents such as the universes becoming dark, and so they consulted Brahma. This indicates that the quality of fear exists for every living entity in the material world. The four principal activities of material existence are eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. The fear element exists also in the demigods. On every planet, even in the higher planetary systems, including the moon and the sun, as well as on this earth, the same principles of animal life exist. Otherwise, why are the demigods also afraid of the darkness? The difference between the demigods and ordinary human beings is that the demigods approach authority, whereas the inhabitants of this earth defy authority. If people would only approach the authority, then every adverse condition in this universe could be rectified. Arjuna was also disturbed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but he approached the authority, Krishna, and his problem was solved. The conclusive instruction of this incident is that we may be disturbed by some material condition, but if we approach the authority who can actually explain the matter, then our problem is solved. The demigods approached Brahma for the meaning of the disturbance, and after hearing from him, they were satisfied and returned home peacefully. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So this is a new chapter, victory of Hiranyaksha over all directions of the universe. And we are continuing with the conversation of Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. Vidura has asked Maitreya Rishi to tell him about the topics relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Maitreya Rishi is telling Vidura one pastime after another, and this is the pastime that is going on. The pastime of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha being killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the last chapter, we saw how Brahma was explaining to his sons, the Devatas, that the cause of darkness which has engulfed this entire universe is because of these two demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, and this was all as per the plan of the Lord, and there is nothing that can be done because the Lord has a desire. He wanted to fight, is why he has arranged this entire thing, And so we shouldn't be afraid about this, and we have to leave it to the Lord for a solution. And so Brahma explains this, and then, so this is the verse that is being mentioned here, that these demigods have now understood from Brahma that, okay, this is the cause of darkness, and after hearing, they have returned to their respective planets. And here in the purport, Prabhupada is writing that fear is it's something that exists for everyone in this material world, no matter how powerful he is, how accomplished he is, whatever he may be. Right from the demigods to an insignificant creature in this material world, everyone is fearful because this material existence is like that. And this is the principles of animal life exists everywhere, even in the higher planetary system, is what is being mentioned. Yes, something very, Prabhupada makes this statement that on every planet, even in the higher planetary system, including the moon and the sun, as well as on the earth, the same principles of animal life exists. So the principles of animal life is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending of fearfulness. It exists everywhere. Otherwise, why are the demigods also afraid of the darkness? So fear, if there's one place where fear doesn't exist, it is only in the spiritual world. And that is why a devotee has no other desire but to go to the spiritual world. Vaikuntha, the name of the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. Kuntha means anxiety or fear. Everyone in this material world, from Brahma to an insignificant ad, is fearful. But it's only in the Vaikuntha where we can attain fearlessness. So, there was once a prince. He was very rich because obviously he belongs to the king. He belongs to he's the son of a king. He goes out for hunting with his entire entourage. And this prince was absolutely fearless because he's a rich person. He goes out for hunting with a big entourage and he's searching after a tiger. And after a long chase and long search, he finds a tiger, and then he starts chasing the tiger fearlessly because he has a bow and an arrow and many arrows. And because the tiger was running very fast, he starts chasing after him, going after him faster. And it so happened that his entire entourage got left behind. And he was all alone, and he had entered the thickets in the center of the jungle. And he shot his arrows at the tiger, but it so happened that he missed that day all his aims. And finally, he ran out of his arrows. And then the tiger realized that now this prince is having no weapons, and the prince had given the tiger a long chase. And now the tiger by this time had become very angry and very hungry. So now the tiger thought it's a good opportunity because the entourage was all left behind. The tiger started chasing the prince. Now the prince was always very fearless because he's a prince. He has everything at his disposal at the call. Now the tiger started chasing the prince, and this was for the first time that some fearfulness, the fear factor, set in the prince. And the prince started running for his life on his horse. The horse had also become very tired because it was a long chase, and he started running for his life, and the tiger started chasing him, and he started running faster and faster. But by now the tiger had gained more energy because a nice meal was awaiting, and that was giving him energy, and he started running, and the prince became engulfed in fearfulness. He became so afraid, so fearful. He's running, and then he's seeing that the tiger is approaching him, and he doesn't know what to do. He's turning left, the tiger is turning left. He's turning right, the tiger is turning right. It's all wide, big jungle, he's running, and then he's running as fast as possible. Fear is gripping him, and then he's seeing the tiger is approaching, and then he's galloping, and then he sees that the tiger has almost approached him, and the tiger has made his final leap to land on him, and at that, and his heart is filled with fear, and at that time he wakes up. He realizes it was a dream. The moment he wakes up, entire fear immediately disappears. So, because he the prince misidentified himself with the situation he was dreaming, is why he became engulfed with fear. And the moment he came to realize the actual facts, the reality, that he is not someone in the dream chasing a tiger on a horseback in the forest, he is not that, immediately all fear gone. So this is the situation of all of us in this material world. We have misidentified ourselves to be this body. We have misidentified, we do not know where we belong to. The moment Prince woke up, he saw no fear, no tiger. In fact, I'm living in a nice palatial palace, and there are servants all around, and there's such a nice atmosphere here. In the same way, the moment a living entity, the spirit soul, wakes up to the realize the actual facts of the matter, that we are all children of God, God is always there to protect us, we will have no fear. It's because, just like the prince forgot that he is the son of a rich king. Similarly, we have forgotten that Krishna is there, he is there to give us protection. Because we have forgotten that is why we are all fearful. And now another way that his fear could have gone, not possible, is someone goes inside his dream and kills the tiger in the dream. And then his fear could have gone. Is this possible? To kill the tiger in the dream? Not possible. And this is exactly what we are trying in the material world. This killing the tiger in the dream is something like, we are all trying to find different kinds of solutions for all the fearful situation that we are facing in the material world, making our own plans, this, that, but nothing will work. It's not possible. So what worked for that person in the dream? He had to be woken up to reality. He was sleeping, he had to be woken up. In the sense, he was dreaming, so he was sleeping, so he woke up and immediately all fear gone. So in the same way, we are actually sleeping in the material world and we have to be woken up to reality. Prabhupada gives 3 reasons why a person in this material world can be compared to like a person who is sleeping. The first reason he gives, in sleep, we forget our real identity, right? Who we are. We don't remember who we are. In the same way, we have actually forgotten that our real identity is the spirit soul. We are all part and parcels of Krishna. And that is why we are afraid. That's the first reason. The second reason, in sleep, we are very fearful because of dreams. The dreams are all very fearful, right? We get a lot of fearful dreams. In the same way, in this material world, we are very fearful because this whole material world is like a dreaming stage. And this whole material world, this dreaming stage, is filled with fearful situations. And what are those fearful situations? Just like these demigods. Such a fearful situation it has become for them. Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, 2 demons, there's darkness all over. The fearful situation, it's birth, death, old age, disease. I mentioned birth, death, old age, disease. That is another fearful situation. None of us can avoid this fearful situation of birth, death, old age, disease. That's another reason. In dreams we are fearful, and this is the reality is that. And the third reason why we are compared to as the sleeping stage as, sleeping, because in sleep, this is another type of, it's a reverse of the previous point. In sleep, we forget the reality of the material world. In sleep, we are forgetful of the trials and tribulations that we are going on in this material world. We think that sometimes you get good dreams. We think that, there's no problem, there's no trouble. Everything is very nice. In the same way, this life that we are leading is considered to be like a sleeping stage because we are totally oblivious of the sufferings that we are undergoing in this material world. We think that everything is very nice and I can enjoy life like this, but we have no idea that what is awaiting us. Depending upon the actions that we are performing, what reaction we are going to get in this life or in the next life, we have no idea. So these are the reasons why we are compared to as a person sleeping in this material world. Now, just like a person who is sleeping in the material world can be woken up, and only then his fear can be extinguished, can be removed. In the same way, we can wake up to reality, the sleeping stage that we are considered to be in this material world. We can wake up to reality only by one way, and that is by hearing the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just like a person in the sleep, if you are awake and if some enemy has attacked you, you can counteract, you can fight with the enemy using so many of your senses. But when you are sleeping, and if some enemy is going to attack you, then you can only be woken up by hearing. Somebody has to call you, wake up, wake up. Only the sense of hearing is active. In the same way, all this fear we can get rid of all this fear in this material world only by hearing. In the Bhagavatam, it is said, Yasyam vai shruyamananam, Yasyam vai shruyamanayam. Yasyam means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, vai shruyamanayam. If you hear about him, shruyamanayam means hearing about him. About whom? Further it says, Krishne parama purushe. By hearing about Krishna, Krishne parama purushe. If you hear about Krishna, there are three things that will happen. Number one, it says, Bhaktir utpadyate pumsaha. We will get bhakti, devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and shoka moha bhaya pahaha. Shoka and moha. Shoka means lamentation, moha means illusion, and bhaya means fearfulness. Shoka moha bhaya apaha. Apaha means all these three things, lamentation, illusion, and bhaya, fearfulness, will be extinguished. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. All this will disappear. So this is the potency of hearing the messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's messages, and this material existence of fearfulness, lamentation, and all these things can come to an end only by hearing the transcendental messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only by hearing we will realize the reality of material existence, and because they are spiritually potent, transcendental messages of Krishna are spiritually potent, when we hear that, when it goes inside our heart, it purifies us, and all these material diseases which is there in our heart, fear, anger, hatred, all these things, they extinguish. Another reason for fear, as it was being mentioned, is that we don't realize that what our original position is. We are spirit soul, but we are in this material world. That is why we are always called this marginal potency. We are spiritual but engaged in we are in a material engagement. So the spirit soul doesn't realize that its actual position is to be in the spiritual world, but it has somehow gotten into this material position, and because of this he is suffering. Because of this, all this fearful situation is arising. This has to be understood, and this can be realized, understood only by hearing the messages of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada gave a very nice example. He said when he was traveling on board the Jaladuta on the ship, he was saying that now on the ship, sometimes the ship is flying smoothly, fine. But sometimes there is a storm. And when there is a storm, you can imagine if you're in the ocean, although you may be in a ship, if there's a storm in the ocean, you'll become very afraid. That disturbance in the ocean will make you very afraid. And you'll be filled with fear. There's a storm, the ship may capsize, the ship may tilt and may get drowned. So, but if that storm comes when you are in land, you will not be so afraid and fearful. You'll be very fearful and afraid when the storm comes in the ocean, but not so much afraid when you're on the land. Why? Because being in the ship is not your natural position. Your natural position is to be on land. And when you are there in a natural position, you will not be fearful. In the same way, we are right now not in our natural position. Our natural position is to be in the spiritual world. And we are in this unnatural position, and we can come out of this unnatural position and be resituated back to that natural position by hearing. And here, in this verse, this is in this purport, Prabhupada is writing, the difference between demigods and ordinary human beings is demigods approach authority. They hear from the authority. Just like we are seeing, Vidura has approached Maitreya Rishi and authority and is hearing and is enjoying the pastimes. Similarly, all the fear disappeared when the demigods approached Brahma. So this is the difference between demigods and human and men of this planet. People, the demigods approach authority, whereas inhabitants of earth, they defy authority. So we have to approach, the conclusive statement of this incident is that one may be disturbed by some material condition, but if we approach the authority who can actually explain the matter, then all our problem is solved, all our fear is gone. So we have to approach authority, and when we hear from authority, our fear will disappear. There was one devotee, this is in 1971, this is during the time of Bombay temple construction. His name was Sethji, you must have heard of him. Now Sethji was, he was not an initiated disciple of Prabhupada. He never took initiation, but he had strong faith in Prabhupada, and he considered Prabhupada to be his guru. Somehow the initiation didn't happen. So although he was not initiated, he was a strong loyalist of ISKCON, had deep faith and trust and love for Prabhupada, and he would serve Prabhupada, and there were a lot of exchange. He would always hear Srila Prabhupada, and he was very happy with, this Krishna consciousness and spiritual life. And so it so happened that in 1971, approximately at that time, ISKCON had acquired 4 acres land in Juhu, Bombay. And the person from whom we had acquired the land, Mr. Nair, although he had given us the land, but later he realized that he could have gotten more money from the land that he gave to ISKCON, and the price had appreciated, and so he wanted back the land. So there was something, so it led to a court case and something like that. And by that time, we had anyway gotten the land, he was demanding more money. Obviously as devotees, whatever we had agreed to, we had given him that much. So all this thing was going on, and so devotees had built a temporary temple in that 4 acres of land. And Mr. Nair was always thinking how to get back that land. So Mrs. Nair, somehow through some connections and some friend of theirs, through one of their friends, they somehow convinced the Bombay Municipal Corporation that they should issue a demolition notice for the temporary temple that was built in that 4 acres land that Mrs. Nair, Mr. Nair and Mrs. Nair had given. And somehow, something they did, and the Bombay Municipal Corporation issued a demolition notice. And the police came one evening and they started demolishing the temple. And the police, and devotees were very few. And that time, Mr. Sethji, who was an ardent supporter of ISKCON, strong loyalist of Prabhupada, had a lot of love for Prabhupada, he was not available. Somehow the devotees couldn't contact him, 1971, and it was during that time. And the devotees protested, but the police wouldn't listen because somehow they had gotten this, somehow they had done something and they had gotten this order to demolish. And then police came and they started demolishing the building, and they dragged the devotees. Unfortunately, nothing happened, and they demolished many things, and they almost touched. They started to demolish the actual altar structure, the ceiling, and Radha Ras Bihari Ji was right inside the temple, and they were being worshipped. Nothing happened to the deity or the temple, but the ceiling, they had almost touched the ceiling. Everything else was demolished. And at that time, fortunately, the Shiv Sena chief, Bala Thackeray Ji, he came, and he is a strong Hindu, devotee, and he came and intervened, and he stopped it. So thankfully, the demolition didn't continue further. And then the next day, Sethji came to know, and he was shocked to hear this. And the Sethji was, he was from the Punjab warrior race. She was very strong, very fearless, very courageous, very witty. These Punjab people are like that, that's why they are very well known. For the Indian army, they do a lot of service. They are very bold and powerful and courageous. So anyway, the matter went to the court, and the court said that, okay, you can build, because they had practically demolished everything except the altar. Okay, you can build, but the case will be heard again the next day in the High Court, and then the final ruling will be given. What should be done and what not should be done. So this is the judgment the court gave. Now the devotees, the temple was demolished. All that was a temporary temple, the whole outer structure. Now Sethji, he was fearless. And one of his reasons for fearlessness was he had a lot of faith and hope and a lot of faith in Prabhupada. So he said, he assured the devotees that only 1 day's time, because next day the hearing had to happen and then the court would decide, and that 1 day was a Sunday. So Sethji assured the devotees that don't worry, I will rebuild the temple in 1 day. The devotees were all surprised. Look at his determination. In 1 day he's saying he'll rebuild the temple. So Sethji said, yes, I'll do it. And Sethji had to face a lot of tests. The first test, he said, I'll build the temple, but that was a Sunday. And on Sunday you won't get any laborers, no one. So somehow he had another small construction going on somewhere. He got all the construction laborers, painters, tools, everything. And in spite of it being a Sunday, he was determined he got them all together, and they started work. They started work in the night at 9 p.m. because by the time he could get everything, it became so late. They started work at 9 p.m. and next day Mangala Aarti was at 4 a.m. So he had to finish everything between 9 a.m. and 4 a.m. So that was the challenge he was facing. But, he was determined and he was fearless. And then he started work. And then the moment he started work, torrential rain started. Started raining very heavily. And he just simply recollected the pastime of Indra and Krishna. And then he prayed, and he said that, he prayed, but the rain didn't stop. The rain went on. And then he said, okay, Indra, you want to test me? Test me. I don't mind. I have the blessings of Srila Prabhupada. So I don't think even this rain is going to stop me. So that much faith he had in the words in Prabhupada. And he fearlessly went on. And then after that, yet another test. At 11 o'clock in the night, Mrs. Nair or Mr. Nair, they again sent a demolition squad. First time the demolition squad came from the municipal corporation, but this time they sent their own demolition squad with 2-3 thugs also came, and they threatened Sethji that if you are not going to stop construction, we are going to send 150 thugs and we are again going to demolish everything. Just 2 minutes more. We are again going to demolish everything. So this is a threatening that they gave, and Sethji was unfettered. He was unmoved. He took up a rifle, and then he had his son also with him. His name was, I think, Brij Mohan. He was also from Punjab, and they were all very courageous and fearless. He gave another rifle to his son, Brij Mohan. He said, we are doing Krishna's work, and these people are illegally trying to stop us. So be fearless, don't worry. They are saying that they'll bring 150 ruffians, but we too have got 200 bullets. So don't worry. We will take care. We'll pray to Krishna, and Prabhupada is there with us, and we'll take care. So they stayed awake. Here the construction is going on from night 9 o'clock till morning 4 o'clock, and they stayed awake. They were anticipating whether they didn't know whether they'll turn up or not. But Sethji's bold and courageous words had made a mark. So they did not turn up. And then right in time at 4 o'clock in the morning, the entire construction was completed. And the Mangal Aarti happened on time. The Seva of Radha Ras Bihari Ji did not stop. And Prabhupada was extremely happy. He praised Sethji for his bravery, for his fearlessness, for his determination to serve Radha Ras Bihari Ji. He praised him like anything, and he thanked him, and then finally next day the High Court, the ruling happened that whatever is built, the judge passed the verdict, whatever is built, and nothing can be demolished anymore. And then finally after the worship continued, and then after a few years the final verdict came that the land belongs to ISKCON, and then the temple got built. And then Prabhupada engaged Sethji only in constructing the temple, constructing the devotees quarter, and Prabhupada told Sethji that as you're constructing the houses, the residential quarters for devotees here, at the same time Krishna is constructing house for you in the spiritual world in Goloka. Because you have served Radha Ras Bihari Ji, this is what he'll do for. So Sethji was very happy. And then the devotee recalls, and the last days when Sethji was about to pass away from this material world, he would recollect these words. He would tell his family members, see, we have served the devotees, we have served Srila Prabhupada fearlessly, and this is what Prabhupada says, Krishna is building quarters for us in the material, in the spiritual world. So with those moments he passed away, and it was all a very nice feeling for him at that time. So this Sethji, although he was not even initiated, but because he heard from Prabhupada, because he served Prabhupada, he became fearless. So this is what we should remember in our life. If we want to be fearless, if we want to get rid of all these tribulations of this material world, we have to hear from a pure devotee. And just like Vidura is hearing from Maitreya. So this way we go on hearing, and we'll be free from all these material conditions. We'll end here. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.